We are joined by Enson Inoue, Pride veteran, UFC veteran, MMA legend, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited to hear what he has for us. Enson, go ahead and introduce yourself to the fans who may not know quite who you are.
What's up, Enson Inoue, Hawaii, born and raised. Moved to Japan 30 years ago for racquetball. Then the way my life just ran together. Suddenly ended up in the ring, and was supposed to be one fight turned to two, turned to three, turned to four, and it became a career. And pretty much MMA is what made me who I am today.
That's awesome to hear, and that's interesting that you touched on, because we wanted to ask, what made you move from Hawaii to Japan 30 plus years ago, and you said it was racquetball.
The craziest thing is I had no interest in Japan. I thought I'm American Japanese, so my blood's full Japanese, but I'm American citizen, and I was born and raised in Hawaii, so pretty much Americanized. So the funny thing is I thought people from Japan were like little aliens from somewhere else, so I had no interest in going there. But the truth of the matter is I got offered to play racquetball. They were going to fly me up, and the biggest reason why I went up was because free trip. The second reason was see my roots. That was a very small percentage, but it's kind of funny because I said, shit, why not? It's a free trip. Let's do it. So that's the reason why I went up for a racquetball tournament. Never thought it was going to be my home.
Turned into your life, basically your lifelong home of the last 30 years. How is Japan treating you? Did you ever consider moving back to the States?
No, well, see, okay, Japan has its ups and downs. The ups definitely outweigh the downs. The downs is it is a prejudiced country. Unfortunately, they are a bias to their Japanese people. They are a little discriminatory to foreigners, and I've been through it. I still go through it. The police, especially, if you're a foreign, you really don't have a chance against a Japanese national. That's a little up downs on it. The ups on it is the people, the mannerism, the culture. I fell in love with it, and the biggest thing for me is my whole life. 30 years. I moved here when I was 23. So longer, I was been here longer, and it's just where I developed Enson Inoue. Enson Inoue back in Hawaii is a kid that went to high school, played baseball, played racquetball, and now he's fighting. That's it. That's the Enson Inoue. The Enson Inoue that people know here is, I bought a house. I got fans that still come and ask me for autographs and pictures, although I retired a long, long time ago. The love I get here, I just got used to the country. I love the way the people are, and it outweighs the police and the prejudice that they have here.
We want to talk about you moving forward, but right now I think we want to see how Suyoshi's doing after this last Ryzen event. How are you feeling about that? How's he doing? Take us through where that's at right now.
Okay, so we went into the fight. We were hoping to win. We were confident that we could pull it out. I also understood that Shibisai is a very good fighter, big boy, a lot of experience. And we really had a lot of question marks on Suyoshi because he really never had a fight that he had to grind out and, get a lot of experience and, go through the ups and downs during the fight. So I actually looked at this fight more as a big opportunity to see where he really stands and how much he has to really work. And so the fight, the beginning of the fight went real bad because Shibisai had a good strategy, kicked him in the calf kick, and although if you watch the fight, it doesn't look like the calf kick did that much damage, but ringside you could see the swelling in his leg, and as an experienced martial artist, that type of swelling isn't something that does not hurt. Then I saw him switch to southpaw, and I was like, oh shit, he's hurt. But then just regarding the outcome as far as the victory and the loss, man, it was an awesome fight for him. He had 3 rounds of ring time. He went through adversity, which a lot of fighters until the end of their career, sometimes they don't go through that type of adversity.
And it's so great to get it early, because if a fighter sees adversity early, they know how to respond. You hate seeing someone go 15-0, 16-0, and then it's like once they get hit, it's like they've never been punched in the face before.
Yeah, so for him, for me, I looked at it like it was a little disappointing because he there's a lot of stuff that he learned, that he executes well in practice. But I think because he was freaking out on his leg and, the pressure of the whole event, like when Shibisai fought for tackles, he sprawled on a couple of them, but when he sprawled, he rocked his hand around the head, which is a big no-no. You got to cross face, you got to cross face so you can get the leverage in your hips. When Shibisai took his back, he knows how to back escape, but he turned the wrong way. So that type of stuff, it's like, damn bummers. And, I always, when we watch the UFC and I see a fighter tap out to a choke, I always like, what the fuck? Tapping out to a choke, you go to sleep, that's it. I understand that the reason that fighters tap out, although a lot of fighters don't understand this, is because it's because not because of pain, it's because they're anticipating what they think is going to happen.
Okay.
You never know when you're going to sleep. You never know when your arm's going to break, but you're anticipating it to happen. That's why you tap out. So he freaked out. He lost focus. Focus was to get out of the choke. Focus was to turn your back to the mat. Don't turn into it and turtle up where he can flatten you. He was doing the right move in the beginning and he freaked out and started. I guess the choke started hurting, so he turned the wrong way. He lost focus. That was the big bummer thing for me is he's a lot better than he showed, but the ups to it is, man, that he got so much experience. And in the adversity that he faced early in the fight, he did really well. He fought southpaw the whole fight. We don't train southpaw.
So
and he did pretty
good
well.
about where he's at. You feel good about where he's at, even despite the result, because you've seen him work, you've seen him in the gym. You know that these are things that he knows, and simmering IQ, some more experience is going to help him out with that. But right now, despite the loss, you're still feeling pretty good about where he's at.
Yes, exactly, man. I mean, some of my losses were my biggest victories. So it's up to us to go back in the gym, train hard, and turn this into a victory.
So
absolutely.
So to move on towards you, what made you pursue fighting? When was the moment that you knew, hey, I might have been born to do this? You said you moved to Japan at 23 for racquetball, so I wonder, they had to have come later than most guys get that calling.
In Hawaii, there's a lot of street fights. Back in the day, before the guns and came out, it was knives and street fights. That's it. There was no guns. So there was a lot of street fighting in Hawaii. So, for me, I started training the martial art just to start learning to defend myself. That's what the whole thing was. And getting into the ring, it was not where I wanted to do it. I was in Japan, went to play racquetball. Although I extensively trained in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and Wing Chun, I never started getting in the ring. That was a whole separate world to me. The professionals in the ring were the professionals in the ring. People training to do self-defense in the street were not equipped to fight in the ring. I just looked at that as a whole different level. Even my first fight, when I got in there, I didn't get in there because I thought I was going to be a champion. I thought it was good. I got in there because it was something I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience that fear level. I wanted to experience me under pressure, under fear, if I could think properly. And that was the only reason why I got in the ring. I always wanted to be level-headed in the most scary situations, because I believe that, in a scary situation is when you really need to be level-headed, to react smart and to protect the ones you love. So, playing racquetball, there's that jitters that you're never the same player in the practice court because of the jitters. But I did get pretty good at it. So
beautiful shot we have of your dog there. You're gonna see that on the broadcast and get a chuckle out of it. Funny enough, the recording we have of your screen, right when you exited out, it showed a perfect picture of your dog's belly there in the middle of the screen. Yeah.
I just got a phone call. I might get a phone call again. I'll just decline all the calls.
No worries.
And we can edit this part out.
Okay.
Yeah, we can edit this out. It's all good.
So for me, it was getting the ring for experience. It was one fight. And I got lucky because Sayama Satoru offered to help me get into the ring, in a professional ring. And, to make a long story short, I only fought the second fight because I felt that Sayama took so much time to train me and he got excited after my first fight. I can't just say I'm going home now. So I said, okay, I'll do one more. And then after that, he was more excited and said, okay, I'll do one more. And the fourth fight, I fought Andre Menard, who was a very respected K1 fighter here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I beat him, that's when everything changed. That's when I thought, oh, wait a minute. I might be good at this, so I want to see what I can do.
So actually,
beat him in a hurry too. 3 minutes 20 seconds. So you didn't waste time with him.
And to move on, I didn't have this listed in our questions, but I want to know how did you fighting in the UFC come to be? You ended up fighting Royce Alger, and a lot of people don't know that actually in his hype video before the fight, he said that they brought out the big guns of wrestling. I don't remember. I think he was talking about he was supposed to be a bigger wrestling prospect than Mark Kerr, than Mark Coleman, and all those guys back then. And not too many people remember him because his MMA career didn't go so well. But you got the pleasure of fighting him. How did that come to be? How did you get your chance to go to the UFC? And
You know what's funny about that? The funny about that is that's the moment when Mark Coleman was actually dominating the wrestling scene. And not the MMA scene. As a wrestler, he came out and he was dominating the MMA scene. And Royce Alger says in the interview, Mark Coleman was good catalyst
bringing
for
out
sport,
the big guns.
but now we're bringing on the A team. And I was like, holy shit, he's just saying that Mark Coleman's good, but I'm the man. You know, I'm like, holy shit, this guy's pretty confident. You know, going back to your question, the reason why I actually got a call from the UFC. Art Davies called me. He said they were running a middleweight tournament, and he felt that me being one of the respected Shuto fighters, he wanted to offer me a slot in the tournament. And that's how it came about. I think it was a $7,500 fight money. And it was in Augusta, Georgia.
That's an interesting story, but moving from the UFC, because what you're mostly known for is your Pride stuff. And to touch on Pride often resembles the best parts of the sport, and it's given us memories that'll live in our minds forever. But for Enson Inoue, what is personally your favorite Pride moment? One, of your career, and two, one that has nothing to do with you.
One of my proudest or the best for my whole career is, you guys going to probably freak out of this, but my fight with Igor
Zinoviev?
Really?
Or Vovchanchin?
I feel like that fight not only taught me who I was as a human being and as a man, it also gave me the opportunity to show that I was the real deal with, being a samurai, having that undying Yamato Damashi spirit.
Well, elaborate on that, because I would love to hear about it. What exactly in that fight made you start thinking that way? And actually elaborate even further. Explain what that samurai mentality means to you, because I know it's deep into who you are.
Well, before the Igor fight, I already had that. I had that reputation. The media in Japan gave me the nickname Yamato Damashi, which means samurai spirit. I always felt that the samurai spirit was an unattainable spirit. It was a spirit that was so strong that no mortal man could actually attain. So for me, although the press and the fans considered me Yamato Damashi, I always felt like it wasn't something that I was, but it was something that I was trying to attain until the day I die. So for me, the Igor fight wasn't a fight that said, okay, this is how I want to run my life. I already was running my life that way. What helped was, you can talk, you can train hard, you can not quit when you're fatigued and hitting mitts, but until you get into that ring and you got someone trying to kill you, you really don't know what you'll do in that pressure situation. You really don't know. You can say stuff like, yeah, I don't care what, I'm ready to die in the ring. And you see a lot of fighters say that in their pre-fight interviews, and the first adverse situation they get in, they start tapping. So for me, it was a good opportunity to prove that I live what I say. And I had that question myself. I feel like I could work through any adversity, but it still was a question, man. Whenever I saw something happen, and I said, "Who would I be able to pull through that?" If I was in that situation, I believe I could, but until you're in that situation, you never know. And the Igor fight allowed me to understand more about myself.
There's this really common theme that you're describing, whether it's the Igor fight or whether it's your first fight, how it almost seems like you're looking at the guy across from you as like a conduit, or this like secondary thing for the primary purpose of your competition being this test within yourself. You're finding out things about you. It's the samurai spirit. It's defending yourself. It's how you feel against adversity. There's all these things that you're describing. And again, it's not even so much that you're going out there with the primary objective to beat that guy. It's, I want to learn about Enson, and this guy is just going to be an opportunity for me to do that. That's a really interesting approach.
You hit that right on the nose. I mean, that's a lot of things that people don't understand about me. I didn't fight for the reasons the 99.9% of the fighters fight today for. I fought for a whole different reason. Yeah. I see the UFC fighters today saying, I want to fight this guy. I'll finish him in the second round. In my mentality, if I could really beat that guy in the second round, he would probably not put me in that adverse situation where I could grow and be stronger as a man. So I've never, ever fought a person that I thought I could beat. Every person that I chose to fight, whenever I had the opportunity to pick my fighters, I picked the fighters that I thought were going to break me. And whether I was broken or not, as long as I was put into that severe situation, I felt I could be able to have the opportunity to grow as a person, as a man.
Yeah, you said in an interview with Chris Lieben that Big John asked you one time if you'd ever taken an easy fight.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And you kind of
came up and said, "Man, Enson, you ever taken an easy fight?" So, and it didn't dawn on me because I was just choosing. Every time I picked a fighter, I thought, "Shit, I would love to face that ferocity in the ring." When I saw Mark Kerr just demolish Hugo Duarte to a point where Hugo Duarte is running out of the ring, and this is the man that challenged Rickson Gracie on this beach and actually had a mount on Rickson Gracie. You know, when I saw that, I as dumb as it may sound and how crazy it may be, the day I was watching that fight in the Tokyo Dome, I remember I was in the middle of the stands. The ring was little, but I was watching it. I was watching the monitor most of the time, and I was saying, "Holy shit! I would really want to feel what that feels in the ring to have someone like that." You know, he was like a specimen, man. To have someone like Mark Kerr on me, trying to kill me.
What do you think is different about your mindset? You've got this incredibly defined mindset about pushing yourself and challenging yourself in the form of fighting. But what makes someone like Enson Inoue different than, again, fighter that wants to just win in the first or second round? From a mental perspective, how do you think differently?
I think the mental perspective is the whole base of it is the main objective. The main objective to me isn't to get sponsors, get famous, make big fight money. My main objective is to test myself, because I see fighting and any adverse situation that you have in your life as little tests. Little tests. Winning a fight and losing a fight is a little test to the main goal. And the main goal is, one, to defend your family in a life and death situation. The second goal and the final goal is to be level-headed and accepting death when that biggest test comes, is to die. And the stronger you can die, I believe the stronger, the better you'll be catapulted into the spiritual world. So for me, I do not want to die a coward. And I believe that all these little tests that I have is going to help me when the real test comes. So I guess for me, when I'm looking in the ring, I'm not looking at that as just one little test that I got to overcome. It's like a stair in my life, so the harder the stair, the stronger you get when you get over the stair.
So that's beautiful to hear. Almost not a lot of people think like that, and that's exactly why we say people like you should be giving out content, because there's not a lot of people who can vocalize exactly what you just did and in the way that you feel in your mindset towards everything. And that kind of helps me transition into, you fought guys like early on Zulu, Royce Alger, then Frank Shamrock, Couture, Curve, Ovchanch, and Heath Herring, and Big Nog. So in preparation for those fights, where does your head go while you're training, while you're getting ready to fight these guys? Where does your head go? And right before the fight's about to begin, when you hear your name being called out, you get in the ring and it's 10, 15 seconds before the bout begins. Where is your head at? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Or is it just more instinct at that point?
Well, the whole base behind the answer to that question is the fact that I was preparing to die. So I trained as hard as I could, not because I wanted to win, not because I had to train to beat this person. I was training as hard as I could because I did not want to die. The harder I trained, the less chances of me dying. So I think behind all that, the way I trained, the way I felt, as soon as I got to fight, the nerves hit. As soon as you get the fighting Mark Kurt, the nerves hit. The fear steps in. All these fighters that say they have no fear, I really can't comprehend their mental state, because you got to accept reality. When you're fighting someone that's 60 pounds heavier than you with more muscle and more power, there is a possibility that he can kill you. Pride rules, you can stomp on his face, you can soccer ball kick him in the head. And back in our day, they didn't stop the fights like they do. They let the fights continue. So the chances of you actually losing your life in the ring was a very good chance. So for me, the way I trained, the way I thought, if you watch me walking into the ring, if you have a video that I'm walking to the ring, try put that in your mind now, that I'm training for 3 months because I don't want to die. I get up in the morning in pain, don't want to train anymore. But I'd rather train through pain than die in the ring. I'm walking into the arena. I mean, if you knew tomorrow, hey, dude, you're going to die on so-and-so avenue tomorrow in a car crash, that's your destiny, to die on that road. Avoid that fucking road by all means, right? But see, look at us as fighters. We've accepted that there's going to be a trained professional training for 3 months to decipher all your weaknesses and try to kill you in the ring. You agree to fight. You drive to the area that you accepted in your heart that you may die today. You got to walk into that ring. Walk into that ring. Every step you take, you're getting closer to the place that you possibly might die today. Whenever I have a fight, I always had people come up to me and say, "Oh, we're fighting on say the 16th," and then they say, "We got a party on the 20th, man. We got a huge party and have a lot of chicks there. Come down, check it out." And for me, it's like, yeah. I answer them like they don't know what I'm thinking. I say, "Yeah, I'll be there, man." And I'm thinking to myself, deep in my heart, I'm saying, "Oh shit! When the day comes when I'm driving to the party, it's going to be a good day because that means I'm alive."
You didn't die
before
4
every
days
fight.
Earlier.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it was not I'm not talking shit. I'm not trying to be tough. I'm trying to relay the actual feelings that I had. I mean, it's hard to explain for someone that has never been through that to comprehend that you actually do in your heart believe that the 16 is going to be that might be your last day on earth. You look at your dogs, you look at your house, you say, man, I might not come home to this. I mean, it was so serious for me that every day, every fight that I had, the 2 days before the fight, I would write letters to people. And like my parents was always one of them. If I had a girlfriend at the time, she would be one of them. Anyone else for me, death wasn't something that I feared. I know it's inevitable. But what I feared was leaving the people behind. You see the people crying at the funerals, man. I don't want that. And for me, I always believed that, it's the way the person died that makes it harder to take. Like my friend just shot himself in the heart in Thailand. And it's just so hard to think the pain that he was feeling to do that. But if you have someone else, like you have someone that, just instantly died in a car crash, there's also mourning for that. But somehow the pain of knowing that person was in pain and probably didn't want to die is just so much harder to take. You hear someone die in a car crash, and the first thing you want to know is, did he die suddenly or was he in pain? And when you hear that he was in pain, for some reason, it hits a different strum in your heart. And so for me, I didn't want to leave those people that I care about. If I didn't come out of the ring that night, I didn't want to leave them thinking that, shit, man, Enson was okay. I wrote letters to them that I know that when they read those words, they would understand that, oh, I've accepted it. This is what I wanted to do. And if I die, I've already accepted it. It's not that I didn't want to die. It's not that I wanted to die. It's just something I 100% accepted in my heart. And I believe that rather than me just dying in the ring and disappearing and these people were hurting for me, if they could read those letters, they would actually take it a lot easier. So I wrote letters to everybody, and I had one student know where it was. I hid it in the attic of my house, and if I died, they were instructed to go to the letters and pass them out. I'm still alive, so every time I got those letters, I burnt them. Every time after my fight, I made a little fire and I burnt them. I do wish I did save some of them today, because I wrote a book.
Oh my goodness!
I wrote a book, and I would have loved to show some of them in the book, because it was deep, man. I took time. It took time, and some of the letters that I wrote, it teared me up. I cried at some of them writing them, because I accepted death. It's a freaky thing, man. It's hard to explain.
It's easy.
Is that
to
acceptance
say.
something that is that acceptance? Sorry, John, a muscle that you've trained and that requires still training to this day, where now because you're not fighting, you sometimes look at it a little bit differently? Or do you think that with all the work you put in that acceptance when you were fighting, that you're kind of just always in that full state of acceptance of, of kind of what happens?
I think I accepted it 80% as soon as I took the fight.
Okay.
But the 20% was the hardest part. And I think I got that 20% through the training, through the suffering, getting ready for the fight. And, to go back on the question that you guys asked earlier about what do I feel when I'm in the ring, as soon as right before it starts, I remember the Igor fight. I remember looking over at him. I remember looking at his girth, his legs and his hips, and it was super thick. And I was thinking, that's where the power comes from. I remember looking at him. He's looking at me. And the moment before the gong went off, I remember thinking in my head, this is a guy that's going to try and end my life. I've got to end his life first.
And with Igor Vovchanchin across from the ring from you, with that thought in your mind, I couldn't imagine the adrenaline, the emotions, everything you're feeling in that fight, because nowadays some people may not know just how big of an animal Igor was, but back then he was one of the most dangerous guys around, one of the most feared guys around. To anybody who watches MMA, I suggest watching some early Pride events, and I guarantee you will come away with a newfound respect for Igor Vovchanchin and for Enson Inoue in the progress, because you fought some killers, and back then it wasn't like now. There weren't weight classes, and as you said, when the UFC called you up for the middleweight tournament, wasn't middleweight at that point was still 205, correct?
Yep.
So you were fighting at about 205, but you fought guys like Mark Kerr and Heath Herring and Big Nog, who outweighed you by a ton, and you beat Randy Couture, who is actually one of our local heroes. Both of us grew up in Portland, Oregon, so Randy Couture is actually a big part of why I'm actually a fan of the sport. And that's why we wanted to touch earlier on what you said a little bit in an interview with Chris Lieben, because he's also from out here. So any ties we can tie in, we'd like to mention. But and as far as Randy Couture goes, can you elaborate a little bit on your mindset before that fight? Because I haven't heard you mention him yet going into this one, and that was a really big fight. It's one of the fights that I would show anybody who was looking into Enson Inoue's career, and you're yet to have mentioned it.
Yeah, the Randy Couture fight, I was actually offered Dan Severn or Randy Couture. Actually, it wasn't it was Dan Severn. So I was supposed to actually fight Dan Severn, and apparently they made a mistake on some dates, and Dan Severn, you know how he was fighting almost every weekend at the time? Yeah. It was like he actually had another date booked with somewhere else, so his fight fell through, and they offered me Randy Couture. And my first whole instinct my whole feeling on that was, holy shit, Randy Couture. And I felt, I got nothing to lose. The reason why I took the fight is I felt I had nothing to lose. So I said, yeah, I'll fight Randy. And of course, doing the media and, talking to people after I've accepted the fight, it was all in the gist that I had no chance. But Randy, being a human being, not a superhero or anything, he's beatable. Everyone's beatable. And the mindset that I had going into that fight was, out of 100 roads on a path that you can go, you're not going to choose more than one. There's one path that you take. If you got 100 opportunities, you're going to take one because you have to do one. You can't drive down 2 roads at one time with one car. So I felt that as long as my chance wasn't 100% no chances, there was roads for me to walk. So, I mean, the way I looked at it was a lot of people looked at it was like 98 to 99% chance I would lose. And when I heard that, I was like, shit, so out of 100 roads, there's one road. So my job is to walk that one road. I don't care if Randy Couture has 99 roads to victory. If I take that one road, those 99 mean nothing. So that was my whole thing, is train hard enough to be able to take that one road that looks like I eventually took.
And you really did take that road, and you got a win over one of the best MMA fighters of all time. We don't hear enough about Randy today, but you definitely, that's a huge win, and I'm sure that is a feather in your cap that you'll take pride in until the day you pass.
I think that's the fight that actually gave me that, that reputation. Oh, he's a good fighter. Because if I didn't have that win, I don't know if I'd be just known as a tough fighter.
So I wanted to also ask, which fights of yours do you look back on to this day? Because there's got to be some of them that you remember more fondly than others.
3 fights that I really look back on and feel good about is Igor, Randy, and Frank Shamrock.
Frank Shamrock was, I read a comment today that said the GSP before GSP, and that's not too far off of a comment. For those who don't know, he retired due to not having good enough competition in the UFC, and they've done a good job of kind of wiping him under the rug. But how was it being across from Frank Shamrock, because he really was one of the initial guys looked at as, hey, this guy might be the greatest.
It was a good experience. I mean, I didn't feel like he was any better than me. I saw it as Shuto against Pancras, and I just felt that I was gonna give him 100%. So for me, it wasn't like I was looking at him and said I could beat him. I can, it was more that I think I can beat him, but if my 100% that day can't beat him, so be it. But I don't think I've ever said in an interview that I'm gonna win. I think I said I'm gonna give 100% every time. So that's what my whole mindset in going to Frank's fight was, 100%. And I believe I have confidence that 100% will beat his 100%. And that's pretty much the whole mindset that I had going into that fight.
Enson, you fought 20 times in your professional mixed martial arts career, and I think some may even argue that that's not the most interesting part of your life, which is outrageous to say. I want to talk about your time in the Japanese underground. You were, and lay this out however you feel you need to, but I just want to kind of get in here. So you were a mediator for the Yakuza. This is correct.
Yeah, not like I had a tag that I was a mediator. It's like the Yakuza.
You didn't
that's
have
our
a name
mediator.
Badge. Yeah, you didn't have a name badge.
I didn't have a badge, but I did a lot of mediations for them.
Talk about
and it was only because
what is that? What is a mediator for the Yakuza do? What's on your job description?
And how do you become that?
Yeah, I'm sure you've talked about it before, but for people who haven't heard before, your stories about your time in this world, what is that like? What happens?
The way the Yakuza had a lot of internal problems, not necessarily in the same family, but between different families. So it's almost like, okay, we have an MMA circle with Bellator, UFC, Strikeforce, Pancras, Shuto, but they'll have problems with each other. And in the Yakuza world, when there were problems, what helped with me was I was very respected in that world. Oh, I still am very respected in that world. And my opinion was valued. So there were a lot of times, the reason why the mediations happened was I didn't walk into any situation saying, hey, I'll help you guys. I'll help you solve it. By all means, you want to stay out of anything that's involved with the underworld, especially problems. But what happened with those is they came to me. So I had a group come in and say, hey, this guy owes me $200,000 and he won't pay. And they also know that I knew that guy.
So these weren't
small things.
These weren't small things they were coming to you for, because $200,000 isn't exactly pocket change.
Well, that was one of the small ones, yeah. Because
Okay, then.
when you're putting a cash value on a problem, it's a small problem. So
Okay, fair. Wow. Okay. Fair
yeah,
enough.
so
That's
in
a
that
little deeper.
situation,
That's a little deeper than we were ready for.
Yeah.
when you're put into that situation, for me, what I did with that was when that family came to me for help, and I knew the other guy. I met with that one family. They gave me their story behind it all. Then on the other hand, I went to the other side. I met with that guy. He gave me his story. And I had power and the respect and the fear in the underworld to be able to put the two families together without going at war at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, so what I do is I always set up a meeting at a neutral place. And the top guys will sit down with each other and hash it out in front of me, promising there weren't going to be any physical problems. And once I hear them hash it out, they'll hash it out in front of me. And if I see there's something that this guy is taking it wrong, or no, you're wrong. He just said this. I would point it out. If not, I just sit through the whole problem. And in the end, I would make a decision right on the spot at the meeting. And the $200,000 problem was something that I felt that the guy that they were asking for that owed him the money was actually the guy that I was closer with. I had a gym in Osaka open with that guy. So although he was on my side, he was wrong. So I told him, I instructed him to get the $200,000 and pay him back. And
how did that go?
It did. Well, so he was a little bummed, but he understood that I was making the fair decision and he respected my decision. So
Is that usually how it went? When you handed down
I was
decisions,
lucky,
did it
man. I have never had any decisions ever challenged, ever.
Wow.
Well, I think even in that side of the world, it would be hard to argue face to face with Enson Inoue, the guy who gets paid to strangle people unconscious.
Well, no, you know what it is. Like I always said, that fear itself won't do enough. Respect itself won't do enough. But if you have a little bit of both, you have the respect and the fear. It goes miles. Yeah? Because to be honest, any Yakuza group in Japan, if they wanted to kill me, they could kill me tomorrow. I got no power compared to what the Yamaguchi Gumi can bring. But they would fear me on a one-on-one situation, but they wouldn't come at me at one-on-one. But then that's where the respect comes in.
Exactly.
When they respect you, it's a whole little different world. Yeah, with the respect and fear, it's a real good ingredient to have. So that situation was good because when I got that money across, the guy agreed, paid him off, and in these negotiation situations, the legitimate is you take half of what is earned. So there's $200,000 that they didn't have because of what I did. They got it. I get half.
Wow.
I declined half. I declined any money because
every time.
No, just a certain time I declined it because I felt that these guys that I were helping, I considered them also a little bit part of my family. So if you're helping your family, you don't help your family as it's not a job to help your family. It's something of honor and loyalty. So I did it without any payment.
So to touch on another thing that I've heard the story a couple of times, where in your words, someone dishonored you. This led to a 20-minute beating, and a very interesting conversation with the Yakuza. Could you elaborate on that and go ahead and expand, because it's a lot harder to find than I initially thought, because I've heard it in a couple of your interviews.
I think that story's in my book.
I believe it is.
It's in my book, that story.
I haven't read your whole book, but I'm pretty sure I read a chunk of it. I was reading about this incident on the internet, and I believe I read an excerpt of your book as well.
Yeah, so this guy, if my book is, it's all real names, real incidents, real family names, everything. I changed nothing in it.
Wow.
So in the book I wrote about it. It's a guy named Aikawa. He was actually the Yakuza that was behind Kid Yamamoto.
Okay.
And as you know, Kid Yamamoto and I had a little bit of falling out because his father came involved with our relationship. And the father was all about money, which I wasn't about. And the father started interfering with a lot of situations or promises that I had with some, K1 and some other people. So when the father wanted to renege on the K1 contract because he wanted more money, I wouldn't stand by that. And Kid chose his father over me, which is understandable, but the father disowned it early in his career because he didn't want to go back to wrestling. He wanted to fight. The father disowned him, and I took care of him. And once he got famous, the father comes out and wants to have a part of him again. And he chose to, instead of showing me true loyalty, he decided to go and step in that side where I had more money, and I let him go. So the Yakuza guy that before, when me and Kid were in good terms, he was the guy that I opened the gym up in Tokyo. It was called Killer Bee Tokyo. So that was my purebred Tokyo gym. His name was AG, and he opened up the gym with me. And when I pulled away from Kid, I pulled away from the gym too. But I was in touch with AG, and I always told him to keep Kid in line. And he started doing stuff where they weren't doing things right. I tried to get in touch with him to talk to him. He wouldn't answer my phones. He wouldn't answer. I would go to the gym. He would never be there. I'd leave a message with the people at the front that have AG call me. He wouldn't call me. And when Kid won the fight against Inoue, it was televised in Japan. And I remember watching the fight with some of my friends. And after the fight, we were going to go drinking at a town. And, it was the Kid is not with me anymore, but I still want to see how he does. So we watched the fight. After the fight, he won. There's a big celebration in the ring. And it was like, oh, wow, he won. Right on. Okay, we're cool. We're watching. And all of a sudden, the whole mood changes because we see AG in the ring jumping up, hugging Kid. I'm looking at this Yakuza jumping in the ring, hugging Kid, thinking, this guy is hiding from me, but he's jumping on national TV in the ring. It's disrespectful to me. So I got on the phone, found where the after party is, went to the after party. We went to the after party. I was going to walk in there and grab him and Kid and drag them out into the park. But the guys that I was with didn't want it, to get any bigger than it is. So they said, we'll go down and get AG. So they went down, they brought him out. I remember this was really funny because he's been running from me. And he's walking into the park holding a beer, sees me in the park and goes, hey, Enson, how you doing?
Oh, no.
And I was like, this motherfucker. So I started beating him. And I didn't beat him up to a point where I wanted to kill him, where I'm mount punching him and beating. I was talking to him, and as I was talking, I was backhanding him in the face.
Oh my God, that's
there
weird.
was only one time that the backhand actually dropped him. But I stood him back up. He was full of blood. And it was so funny because in that whole incident, of course, I'm yelling at him. Guess we were making a lot of noise in the park, and there's a little old lady that lived near the park. She came out of the house and she started screaming at us, telling you guys making too much noise. And there's there was a couple other Yakuza guys that came down because they were worried about what was going to happen. But when they were there, they were afraid to get involved because I was so mad. And she starts screaming at all of them, telling them to get out of here. You guys are making too much noise.
She's just screaming at a bunch of Yakuza guys.
And one of the Yakuza turned to the lady and starts telling her, shut the fuck up, fuck you. And I was like, no, she's an old lady, leave her alone. I told the guy, his name was Iken, I said, stop. I said, let's go. There was another park right next door. So I said, let's move. I don't want to upset the lady. So we started walking to the other park. I had AG follow me. He was all bloody. And the word was out what was happening. The Underground has this little grapevine that goes really fast. So there's two big Yakuza guys that are over AG that are part of a bigger family. They're part of this family called the Osekai. But they came out. And it was real funny because I still remember it. When we walked over to the park, as we got to the other park, these two guys came out from the bushes. And the easiest way to describe it is that you're walking in the jungle and you hear a rustling in the bushes and you see these two gorillas coming out into the open. That's how it was like. And they were super pissed off and they start screaming at me. And the guys that were with me, I had some of the Chinese mafia guys with me. They came in and stood in between us. And I was there pissed off as shit and thinking, if these guys are going to back him up, fine, let's do it. So I wasn't sure if they understood the whole situation. So what I did to my guys, I said, step back, let them through. And I told those guys, the guy who was a big guy, the guy Hasegawa, I said, I just want to say one thing. And if you don't like it, we go for it. And I told him that if someone screwed you over and you only punished him 20% of what you felt you wanted to punish him, wouldn't you think that's fair? And he looked at me, he goes, look at his face, look at him, he can't work. Because Yakuza is about being tough, yeah? He can't work. His face is all bloody. What do you mean? I said, so I asked him, Hasegawa, if I really wanted to hurt him, it's been 20 minutes. You think he'd be standing where he is today? He goes, no. I said, well, 20%, man. And then his whole demeanor changed. And he stopped. He looked at me. He goes, man, can you stop though? I said, yeah, I've got what I did. I think he understands. I'm done. And the thing that really pulled me off of it was Hasegawa told me that he gave me his word that if he doesn't do things right from now, I'll kill him myself. So that was that story, you know. And I'm still in touch with Hasegawa today.
Wow.
You know what's a funny thing to add on to that I didn't have in my book but I found out later was he had a problem with some people in Hawaii that got arrested. So he called me for help in Hawaii. So we went to dinner and we were talking about that incident, reminiscing on it, kind of laughing about it. And he told me that him and his guys had metal sticks in their pants. And I didn't know it because they didn't pull it out. So he said, yeah, we had metal sticks in our pants. I said, whoa. He said, yeah, well, we're going to have to deal with Enson Inoue. We didn't know what we're going to have to deal with. So they wanted to, so I didn't know that.
The
Those
last
freaking guys had metal sticks in their pants. I was like, holy fuck, you fuckers, man.
well, can you blame them? The last thing you want to end up in a street fight is in a triangle choke by Enson Inoue.
I know. Get that stick on and whack them in the head. Huh?
So
that's the escape to the triangle. Get a metal stick on and whack them in the head.
tell someone that to do that in the octagon. We wouldn't see them ever again. But to transition over, I wanted to touch on Power Stones and how you got into them and what they mean to you, because I know they mean a lot to you. I know you've talked about them openly on basically anywhere you've been. So go ahead and elaborate. What got you into them, and what kind of relation do you have to Power Stones yourself?
Well, to be honest, when I first started making the bracelets, I didn't know what Power Stones were. So in Japan, they have these bracelets, yeah.
It looks beautiful.
They believe that it's a protection thing. So in Japan, you see a lot of the guys wearing these bracelets, and then they believe that when it breaks, it's not a bad thing; it's a good thing, because if a bracelet breaks, it's actually taking something for you. So even when a crystal cracks, that means it either absorbed enough negativity to crack, or it's actually in place of you taking something bad that was supposed to come to you.
It's a buffer.
So the reason why I wore these bracelets was because of that. And what even solidified even more is I got into a car accident. I had an S600 Mercedes-Benz that I was speeding with, and I crashed into a wall. And I totally, you know how strong Mercedes-Benz are, yeah? It was a total wreck. Like, it was total. I couldn't salvage anything of it. All I had was a fat lip. I had two airbags shoot on me, one from the door and one from the steering wheel. And I had a fat lip from one of the airbags and no injuries, absolutely no injuries. And when I went home, I had to tow the car. When I went home, I was like, oh, shit, where's my bracelet? Shit. I had called the towing company. And they found my bracelet under the accelerating pedal. I guess through the accident, it flew under there. And it was broken. And right there, I saw it. I was like, holy shit. Who totals a Mercedes-Benz and walks away from it? You know what I mean? So, with a fat lip. So, that solidified my belief.
It's hard to say that the bracelets wouldn't have a little bit of power there, especially considering you slam your car, nothing happens to you, but the bracelet just so happens to be snapped.
Yeah. So right there, I felt, okay, coincidence or not, I just feel safe keeping them on. So when it moved to me making them was, I always, from my 39th birthday is the day that I decided that during my parties, I wouldn't accept presents on my birthday. The reason being is, like for you guys, when you guys are raised, we are all raised as children to believe that the true happiness in life is the gift of receiving. Because your birthday is your day. So like sometimes some parents will let them play not go to school. They'll give them a present that they want. What do you want for your birthday? It's your day. So we're ingrained to believe that receiving is the most happiness that you can get. But after doing, a lot of the relief work in the north after the tsunami and all that, I realized that the biggest joy in life is actually giving. So ironically, my 39th birthday, if you say it in Japanese, is sankyu. So it's almost like it's sankyu, yeah. So it's almost like saying thank you, yeah. Sankyu, yeah.
Sankyu, okay.
So I thought it was a nice sign. And on that 39th birthday, I had a big party where I invited all the people that I called family, and I made them bracelet. I bought them bracelet. I think that year I spent $12,000 on bracelets for everyone that came, and gave them out. And I did that for every party. And one of the parties that I was going to have when I wanted to get it made, the guy who actually made them for me was running from the police, so he didn't have the time to sit down and make it. So he said he'll meet me somewhere, teach me how to make them so I can make them. So I was like, holy shit. My first impression was, there's no way I'm going to make something like this. And he said, no, it's one simple knot. You can make it. So we went, he got together, he showed me how to make them. And the first bracelet I made took me 3 hours. So doesn't need to be said, but no one got bracelets at that party because there's no way I'd be able to make like 40 bracelets in 3 hours each, so. But I as I kept practicing to make them, it came to a point where I felt confident enough to put it on Facebook. When I did put it on Facebook, a lot of people inquired about buying. First 6 months I declined, saying that it wasn't something that I sold. It was just it was a hobby. And after it was real persistent, people that wanted me to make, I said, okay, I'll set a price. Blew up to a point where I had to make a web page. And it was funny because when I started making for people, they started asking for different colors. Can I get a blue one? Can I get a red one? I'm like, okay. So I went into the stone shops, and I'm going there asking the guys at the stone shop, can I have a red? What are the red beads? Where are the red beads? And they're red beads. Most people go in, they say, like, I want a red agate or I want jasper. They talk about the names of the beads. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at red ones. They're looking at me and, okay, where's the black ones? They're looking at me like, oh, this guy doesn't know. So one of the guys actually asked me, do you know that every stone has its own property? I'm like, what are you talking about? They're stones. They can't have properties. And then he kind of explained, then he kind of explained to me, and I was like, oh, that's cool, but there's no way these stones give off properties. And, as I read up on them, I got to learn about it. And when I first opened my website, it was more about the beauty of the bracelet and about it being protection, because I didn't really understand the powers of it. Through 10 years of making and selling the bracelets, man, I've understood a lot of it. I can't personally say that I'm I'm a guy that's real sensitive that can feel each power, but we have, whether it's placebo or not, it works for a lot of my customers. People who are suffering from anxiety get a lot calmer. There was a guy that walked in that had nightmares for like years, and me and my wife made him a bracelet that we looked up what was good for bad dreams, and he came in like a week later, like really freaked out that he hasn't been having bad dreams. And the biggest one for me that I always talk about is this little girl that came in. That was, how old was she? So about 4 or 5 years old, yeah? About 4, a little girl. And she had all like scabs and scars on her skin and her face and on her arms. And the mom said she has an allergy that she can't even sleep at night. and she keeps scratching, and the baby's crying because she can't sleep. And we made her the rose quartz we looked up is good for it's a pink stone. It's good for allergies. So we made her a bracelet, and it was like I think 2 weeks later she came in, and the mom was at the verge of tears, and she said, "Man, since my daughter put on the bracelet, she hasn't been scratching." And then the daughter was there, and her scabs are gone. You could still see the scars, but her scabs are gone. Her face was clear. I mean, I don't know how do you explain that?
Hey man, placebo or not, if it works, right? Like that girl doesn't care.
Exactly.
The guy with the nightmares,
That's
he
what I
doesn't care.
say.
Like whether or not there's, the properties exist if the results, show that. So if it's working for these people, then by all means we support that.
And do you ship outside of Japan?
Yes, we ship out throughout the world. My website, destinyforever.com. It's my international site. I also have a Japanese site, but that's only for actually Japan. But
what is the international site? Can you say it again?
Destinyforever.com.
Destinyforever.com.
And I'll link it. I'll link it down below when we get this posted, and I'll make sure to try and get one in myself. Are all of the ones that you guys make made by you guys, handmade by you guys, or?
90% of them made by me.
You better make the one I buy, Enson.
Yeah, so we have a lot of customers that it's funny because I actually opened a shop in Hawaii, and there are actually customers to asked if they can be made by my wife. My wife can make them too. But yes, so she's an awesome person too, and she connects with a lot of people, and she's very spiritual. So there's some customers that insist that it be made by her. So
well, hey, when I asked if it was made by you, I considered the two of you. If it's made by her, that's fine by me.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that specifically ask for me, specifically ask for her. Whatever they ask for, we definitely make it to the specified that they want, the person that they want.
That's really awesome, man. That's really cool. I just recently, I guess not recently, but fairly recently, you made some news, or you made a post. There was some dust up about you and an issue you're having with the IBJJF regarding black belt status and what that means for your gym. How did that start for people that don't know, and where has that gone since? Where are you at with that? Is there a reason that why they won't accept your black belt? Get into that for us a little bit.
Well, I got my black belt in 1998, and I've never ever put on a stripe. I've never really thought about what degree I am or ever got certified because I never entered jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah.
My school was a part of Purebred. They're Purebred school. They've entered the Asian Championships. They've entered the Worlds. They've represented the school. And apparently a couple of years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, I think the IBJJF changed their rules that you needed a 4th degree black belt or higher to register your school, or they won't be a registered school. I had no idea that was happening. Purebred Guam, my Guam gym, Purebred, has been winning the Asian Championships for like the last 5 years, the team standings.
Okay.
So the year before, I think it was 2019, when they came in, I noticed that they were under another name. And I asked the head instructor, Steve Roberto, how come you guys not fighting under Purebred? Because, they could have fought on the other team because the other team was a part of, I consider a family with me. So that's fine. TAC team. And, it was cool. But then I just asked, wow, you got such a good run with Purebred. Wouldn't you want to get 6 years in a row now? And that's when he explained me the situation. He was only I think he was a 3rd degree black belt at the time. And he said that without a higher belt, he couldn't register. So he asked Jared Weiner, who is the head of BJJ United, the mainstream of TAC team. So they asked him to do it. Of course, he's like a brother. So he said, fine, he'll register so that everyone can enter. But unfortunately, because he registered, they had to fight under TAC team. So that was the thing that I said, oh, shit. I'm legitimately would be a 5th degree black belt. I just haven't registered. So I figured, shit, let's see what I can do to register. And you know what? I wasn't asking for a pass on it. I was planning to do everything they needed. If I had to do, I understand you have to do some kind of referees clinic. And, I said, I want to do all that. What is the procedures? And I got I think Barrett Yoshida actually went and talked to them for me. he got an email back telling me that I'm not, they're not going to acknowledge my black belt. I'm like, whoa, what do you mean you're not going to acknowledge my black belt? So he said, I can put in a entry, a application for it, but they said at least for 6 months, it's going to be under review, and until then, you're not going to accept me as a black belt. So I was like, wow, why is it going to take 6 months? Google my name. There's news on it. I was, my team has been entered in the jiu-jitsu tournaments for ages. Barrett's one that would train under me to it for a moment. I have a lot of guys that Barrett's at 3rd degree now. It's like, what else do I need to do? And so that's actually what happened. They declined my membership. I mean, my belt. They don't acknowledge my belt.
Did they give a reason why? Did they give any sort of reasoning as to why they just refuse to acknowledge what is clearly a legitimate?
No specific reason. But because I've never been in their database.
Wow. But,
so but
you're trying to get in their database and they won't let you. So it's like
so it's almost like
you've been around probably just as long as their database.
Well, it was almost no. So the funny thing is, I've been a black belt 6 years before that freaking association has ever been even formed.
And black belts older than they are. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Wow.
But all props to the IBJJF. They're like the most legit jiu-jitsu association. Without the IBJJF, jiu-jitsu wouldn't probably be as big as it is and as organized as it is today. But they never gave me a reason. I'm just thinking the reason was because as you, I know there's some type of fee that you have to pay every time you get a belt. So if you're looking at me right now, white, blue, purple, black, 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree, they lost a lot of payments. So I'm thinking that's what it's about, but but I didn't even get as far to say that, okay, you have to pay all those money. You have to take the referee's
tell you, how could you expect to know?
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
They
didn't give me that. They just said, I'm not, I actually have the email. Barrett forwarded it to me that they're not acknowledging my belt. So it's still in the process, believe it or not. So what happened there was I was like, okay, screw the IBJJF, forget it. And then I got reached out by, my mentor, John Lewis. He told me, hey, we don't need the IBJJF. 2 weeks later, Andre Prenadera sent me a certificate of my 5th degree black belt in the mail. And I have a certain, I would have never asked for that. But because of this whole incident, I actually got to attain that. And it's also pretty cool to have, So I got that.
It's just crazy that they'll send you a certificate that says that's your rank, but they won't acknowledge it in a way that allows for.
It wasn't IBJJF. It's Andre Prenadera.
Yeah, it was
Andre Prenadera only. Interesting. Okay.
So that does nothing for me in the IBJJF, but for me personally, I don't need the IBJJF. I don't plan to enter any jiu-jitsu tournaments. It was for my students. That's all it was for, and unfortunately, it still hasn't processed. Because of the pandemic, it was no problem because there was no jiu-jitsu tournaments. But it was funny because after that whole incident hit the news, Renzo Gracie got in touch with me.
Wow.
And Renzo Gracie was kind of a little upset that they would actually not consider me at all. And he said he's going to make a phone call. He's going to talk to them. And it's in the press process right now. So
hopefully there's some positive. I mean, if they need, I'm sure they could ask Randy about your black belt status, and then they can probably give a glowing review of your abilities. I want to talk to you quickly about a personal experience that you had in 2008. You spent a few weeks in Japanese prison for something that I think most people would feel you shouldn't have gone there for. Lay that out for us. What was that like? How did you end up there, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I was caught with possession of marijuana. And maybe
how dare you?
Weren't we?
In a lot of people's eyes, it's like ridiculous, but in my eyes, I knew the law before I started doing that, and I accept it. It's as much as ridiculous as it may sound. When in Rome, you gotta you gotta do as the Romans do. So when in Japan, do as the Japanese do, and it's against their law. So I got caught with possession. The funny thing is, I was actually growing and selling at the time, so I didn't get caught for that. So, if you want to make it unfair, it's not unfair. I got lucky actually, and the crazy thing about it is, I believe that in any situation in your life, good or bad, there is good to it. As long as you don't close your eyes to the good and just if you close your eyes to the good and dwell on the bad, you're gonna always regret the situation. But there's good things. I learned from the good, bad, and I focus on the good. And there was a lot of good things. I was going on the wrong road. Like I said, not only possession, I was growing.
Wake up call for you.
Oh, wake up call, 100% wake up call. And it also the big thing, the spiritual thing that it helped me with was it made me appreciate my freedom. Everybody here has gripes and complaints about everything, but overall, those gripes. So what people need to understand is freedom, man. Do you guys even realize how awesome freedom is? Until you get locked in a jail and you're not allowed to feel the rain on your face, you're not allowed to decide what and when you eat, how long you sleep, when you can take a bath, what kind of clothes you can wear, what kind of material you can read. Everything in prison is controlled. Every single thing in prison. They tell you when you can brush your teeth. They tell you how long you can shower. They tell you what you can eat, and you can't have seconds. They tell you how much food is enough for you to eat, what you can and cannot drink. I was in the bus chained up to other prisoners, going to the courts to go serve my trial, and I'm looking out the window, looking at these people, some of them dragging their ass because they don't want to go to work. And I'm just looking out there thinking, I just want to give them a big slap in the face and say, man, dude, you got your freedom. Don't act like this. Be happy, So I think for me, prison, that was the biggest thing, man. The freedom that we are born with, because we're born with it, we take it for granted, man. I've learned to appreciate the freedom that I have. I can decide when to sleep, what I eat, what I do, if I want to go to work or not, if I want to do this podcast or not. It's my freedom, Freedom's awesome, man. So yeah. It was
Enson Inoue is in the database of the Tokyo penal system and not in the IBJJF. It's outrageous. Before we let you go, I want to know who you like to watch in mixed martial arts right now, whether it be the UFC, whether it be another promotion, Ryzen, obviously. Who do you like to watch?
I like to watch all of them, especially the UFC, Bellator, of course, Rising. And I like to watch Invicta also.
What fighters are there any fighters that you make sure to not miss if they're fighting, you're in front of the TV, you're watching, outside of your own people, of course? Are there any others that you just make sure you have to see?
Khabib was one of them.
Of course, yeah.
Justin Gaethje. Guys like Matt Holloway. I love the fighters that that. I don't enjoy the shit talk. To be honest, I do like to watch shit talkers because I like to see them get beat.
Okay.
But
that means they're doing their
the
job.
fighters
right.
I respect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these guys are dumb. They shit talk, but you know what? Every time they shit talk, I want to see their fights. So they're actually, they're doing their job.
Who's the dumb one?
Damian Maia, Jacques.
Okay.
Those are guys I love. Kron Gracie, man, awesome. I love to see Kron fight. And the Diaz brothers.
Hey, what a fight last Saturday, right?
Gee, how's that, huh? Getting
Yeah.
totally dominant until the last, minute in the last round?
It was the quintessential later stage Nate Diaz fight where he's bloody, he's battered, and he's still just right there standing bang, and he's chatting, he's flipping him off.
Beginning of the third round, he's doing the Diaz flex.
Yeah, he's outrageous. Yeah.
Could that fight have ended any better? Isn't that the exact Diaz, the Diaz brothers fashion right there?
That's one of those fights you show people if they're not familiar with the Diaz brothers. That's one of those fights that you say, hey, watch this. This is how you get a really good perspective of who they are.
I'd argue that it did end even better because after the fight, Nate went to Leon and said, hey, name your price. Don't let them name it for you. I think that is one of the most Diaz things you can do after a fight, win, lose, or draw, to go up to your opponent and say, hey, you can be making more than you're making right now. Name your own price. I think that was awesome.
And then Diaz says in a post-fight interview, I'm better than him.
They just never let it go. It's awesome. No, they're great.
So in
Yeah.
closing, I was wondering if you could go ahead and just drop your name, go ahead and say, hey, I'm Enson Inoue, and you're listening to the Uncaged podcast.
Shoot. I'm Enson Inoue, and you're listening to the Uncaged Podcast.